Just down at the very famous grave of Marjorie McCall. There's not a Lurgan person alive. He hasn't heard the story. She lived once and she was buried twice, but I don't really know the full story, you know, and the ins and outs of it. But sometimes there's funny people lurking about this graveyard, and maybe some of them will tell us the story.
Hello. What are you doing here?
You get me into some rare situations, Jim, I can tell you.
Oh, you're waking me out of my sleep there, aren't I?
So,
yeah. This is the grave of the famous Marjorie McCall. And you can see, probably can't see, it's too bit dark here to see it, but that's her husband's name written on the top of there, John. And so you can see John McCall there. Well, John, he took part, you see, in the Battle of the Boyne. And what people probably don't realise is about a quarter of the army died before the Battle of the Boyne even took place. And that was because of fever. And the fever followed those great battles at the time. Of course, in 1684, John returned from the Williamite Wars to Lurgan, and when he came back along with the rest of the soldiers, he brought the fever with him and came into Lurgan anyway, and Marjorie was delighted to see him. Unfortunately, he transmitted the disease to Marjorie, and a few days later she caught the fever and passed away. They had to wake for her, and of course during the wake her body had all swelled up and she had a beautiful ring on her. And but there was a lot of talk at the wake about this beautiful ring, but they couldn't get it off her finger because of the body being all swollen. Anyway, they buried her with the ring. Now, grave robbers, what they would do is they would come along till the burial, and they would bring like a broken glass with them, and when nobody was looking they would sprinkle the broken glass on the grave, because the secret about grave robbing is that you have to get it straight away before the soil sinks down. And what they would do is they would come and break around the head area, smash the coffin open, put a rope around under the arms and pull the body up, right? So obviously the grave robbers came to do that, and they were pulling the body up. And if you think of that, there CPR, is it, that when you do this here, right?
Yep.
Well, really that was the same action as CPR. So they pulled the body out, and then they spotted the ring, and they took a knife to the finger. And between the CPR pulling the body, the blood being drawn, she had been in a coma, come back to life, and she went up there till Church Place, knocked the door, and the husband says to the children, "Oh dear, if we hadn't buried your mother this morning, it's where that's her knock." Opened the door, of course, that was Marjorie McCall. And I have actually seen records there where she's still alive in 1722, but the husband's dead. So they lived a long, fruitful life later on, and apparently had more children. So that's the story of Marjorie McCall.
Brilliant, Jim. And what do you call it? You're going to tell us about the story.
The one
that used to put shivers up my spine, Cubbage.
Cubbage, yeah. The one that scares the Lurgan people is the story of Cubbage. Yep. And we'll go down here and see that one now.
Go ahead, Jim. So
we're here now at as you can hear the trains. This is the closest grave to the railway line, which has its own poignancy in that we're at the grave here of the Cubbage family. And the Cubbage ghost is the one that scares everybody in Lurgan. Anybody that comes from the Shankill area or Silver area would have been aware of the ghost of Cubbage. And it's this guy here, Henry Croker Cubbage. So he went to India as a young fella in the East India Company. He was a soldier, 13, stayed up there for 30 years, 33 years. In their past, the family had been cursed by an Indian princess. She had been married to one of the Cubbages, and when he was coming back, he was allowed to take the children, but wasn't allowed to take her. As the boat was pulling out of the harbour, she threw herself into the sea and cursed the family. Anyway, so he fell in love when he came back to Ireland, and asked the girl to marry him, and the girl said she would, but she found something out. Perhaps it was about this Indian curse, I'm not sure, but she said she wouldn't marry him. So he went out onto the railway lines down there in Silverweed, and he went out, put the head onto the railway line, 11 o'clock train, which was the mail train, carrying the mail, chopped his head off, and his soul has never rested since. Now, this grave is usually covered with chains, you know.
Yep.
And the chains rattle off, and when we were children we used to hear the chains. Coverage would come along carrying his chains, and of course carrying his head. So Cubbage would carry the head under the arm like this here, and carrying the chains, and that would come along. And we were terrified of Cubbage, and we had these rhymes: poor Cubbage is dead, poor Cubbage is dead, and when he awakes, he will get one of us.